Hickok 45 here. Welcome to the Hickok 45 Talks channel. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk to you about guns on the street. How terrible that is. How many times have you heard that phrase? Guns on the street. Got to get the guns off the street. There's too many guns on the street. And who is it that usually utters that phrase? That's a quiz. Yeah, you know who it is. Usually it's politicians. Often it's a police chief in a large city or a mayor, and they are making excuses for their soft treatment of crime. You know, they can't get the criminals off the street. They can't do that, so what do they blame it on? It's those guns on the street, right? What the heck does that mean? Again, what does that mean? Guns on the street. John and I were going to do a funny video years ago, and we just never did do it. I think we talked about a place or two where we might be able to do it that would be safe. And I gotten in trouble, I don't know. But putting it on video, we talked about going down a county road out here somewhere where I live and laying 2 or 3 Glocks on the road. You know, cars are coming, you know, some morning or whenever we can, and just lay them on the road, you know, and then drive up and just pull them off the street, get them off the road, put them in the car and say something about how we're just trying to get guns off the street. I don't know. Wouldn't that have been hilarious, right? But anyway, guns on the street. Well, obviously they don't mean it literally, because I've never seen a gun on the parkway, lying on the concrete, on the interstate, lying on the pavement, county road, state highway, gravel road, country road, lane, boulevard. I've never seen one on Bellmead Boulevard in Nashville. I have just never seen a firearm lying on the street. Maybe you have. So they must not mean it literally, you think. So what do they mean? I guess they mean just generally what they are saying is there are too many guns out there. And if it weren't for that, we would not have the crime in our city. We could get this crime under control. That's what they're saying, right? And of course I talk about mayors and police chiefs, politically minded police chiefs, maybe even governors, but it's or presidents, but it's just a common phrase, and it's like an assault weapon or something. It's just something they pull out of their hat, that they use that to try to remind people or make people think that there's just too many guns. That's what they really mean in general. They don't like us having guns. They don't like guns being out there. If there were no guns, not that that could ever be the case, then they wouldn't have such a crime problem, they think, right? So they're laying blame to the firearms as usual. Guns on the street, that's like violent guns or gun violence, you know, no such thing, or gun kindness, no such thing. Guns on the street, no such thing, okay? Now there are people who are owning guns illegally. They're not legal to own guns, and we could argue that and debate that, you know, if someone has a felony, whether or not they should be giving up their Second Amendment rights once they've served their time or paid their fine, paid the dues to society. That's another issue. But there are people where it is illegal for them to own a gun, of course. But the gun's not really illegal. I've said the same thing for decades about, it used to be that you would consider a child illegitimate of all things, you know, if the parents weren't married or that kind of thing. That was just it, illegitimate child. And that's gone by the wayside, you know, thankfully. But I mean, it's terrible to label a child. The child is not illegitimate any more than that gun is illegal, right? Guns can't be legal or illegal, really. They can be owned by someone who's not able to legally own it, right? There are people who can legally own a Glock switch. You've seen it here, you know, because we were with them, we were using it because they own it legally, or a Glock 18 and things that are really tough to own. But there are people who can legally own it, and most of us cannot legally own it. So it's the person, all right? No kids are illegitimate. No guns are illegal. I guess that's a decent analogy. I don't know, it just comes to mind. So anyway, on the street is such a stupid phrase. It just is crazy. They're just blaming, the crime on guns as usual, and it just doesn't work. If you're a thinking person, you know, you just don't think that way. You know, my guns. I've never been on the street. I mean, technically though, my guns are also on the street. I live on a street. I have guns. Those guns they're talking about, these, even though it's a city, maybe it's an inner city, maybe it's an area where there's a lot of crime, but what they're talking about are the people who live in their city who have guns, right? I mean, that's it. There's too many guns in their city. That's what they're saying. And so they're talking about those people who own those guns because they're literally not on the street. They're in their pockets or their dresser drawer, wherever they are. They're possessed by individuals in their cities, just like my guns are possessed by me in my county, town, whatever. So my guns are on the street as much as their guns are on the street. And in those inner cities, even where there's a lot of crime, uh, there are probably a great percentage of the people who have a firearm, and they're legal to have that firearm. I would say most, wouldn't you? Maybe by a vast majority. So those guns on the street they're talking about are guns that most of them are owned by law-abiding citizens, and there's nothing illegal about those guns. They're not on the street. They're in the hands of somebody who can own them. So, but anyway, guns on the street, another one of those phrases that is pretty much meaningless and something that the anti-gunners use, anti-Second Amendment people use in a pejorative way to, to further their agenda. They really don't want you or me owning guns. They don't want anybody owning guns. Many of them don't even like people who own guns, right? We catch them admitting that. That's what it is. They don't like that. And of course, governments would much rather have unarmed citizens, unarmed subjects, than have an armed citizenry, right? For obvious reasons. Every government through the ages would prefer to have an unarmed citizenry or subjects, because once you're unarmed, you're having trouble speaking today, but once a population is unarmed, they're really not citizens anymore. They're subjects. So, guns on the street. Got a little long-winded, didn't I? I apologize. I think it's because I'm out here in the woods. I got all my favorite buddies with me, my trees, my oaks, my hickories, and they give off a lot of oxygen. Yeah, really. When you live in the country, you got more clean oxygen coming off all the plants. And I think it kind of gets into your head, and you just can't quit talking. So anyway, that's all I got to say. I'm done. Life is good.